Very good evening to our esteemed guest speakers. Okay, just to clarify, a very good evening from Malaysia. Dr. Gozia is from the UK. I think that is just bright and early in the morning right now. She's just starting the day. So hi to all our esteemed guests, management staff of Help University, the University of Sussex, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Melody Tan. I am the program leader of the Bachelor of Business Analytics program in the Faculty of Business at Help University. On behalf of the Faculty of Business at Help University, I welcome all of you to our first session of the Careers and Jobs for the Future series. Okay. Today, we will be focusing on the topics financial technology, or short form Fintech, and business analytics. Fintech is fast becoming a central part of the financial services industry and future economy, while business analytics has been rapidly growing due to the advent of a technology that can compile data in a form that is amenable to analysis, leading to decision making. A shout out that today's webinar is conducted in collaboration with the University of Sussex. At HELP, we strive to be an analytics-driven entrepreneurial university. As such, to enable our graduates to thrive in the future data-driven world, students can enroll for specially designed bachelor's degrees, the Bachelor of Business Analytics, and the Bachelor of Information Technology in Data Analytics, and also master's degrees. We have a Master in Data Science and Master in Applied Business Analytics. Furthermore, we have a 1+2 credit transfer arrangement with the University of Sussex, where students who have completed the first year of a Bachelor of Business Analytics degree at Help University will be able to go to the University of Sussex to complete the final 2 years of a Bachelor in Finance and Technology degree. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we shall have with us 3 guest speakers instead of 4, as one of them will unfortunately not be able to join us due to unforeseen circumstances. Okay. The first 2 speakers shall share with us their experiences of the applications of business analytics in the industry, while our last speaker will provide an overview of fintech in the banking industry. Our first speaker is Mr. Ko Waihao, a data scientist with Khazanah National Berhad. He has more than 5 years of experience in delivering advanced analytics and business intelligence solutions for airlines, media, property, and FMCG industries. On 15 August 2021, the Star Media in Malaysia reported that Mr. Ko had developed a MySejahtera application that allows one to track the COVID-19 hotspots in the entire Klang Valley. For those who do not know, MySejahtera is a mobile application that facilitates contact tracing efforts in response to the COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia. Our second speaker is Mr. Erhan Azrai, CEO of Kotak Sati, a data company. Erhan's company helps clients with data sanitizing, modeling, ETL, and dashboarding with Power BI and/or Tableau. Also focusing on analytics and algorithms in location, financial, and energy data. And he also helps companies set up their initial data team, including conducting various on-site data analytics workshops and training sessions. Our last speaker for today's session is Dr. Gozia. She is a senior lecturer in banking and fintech at the Department of Business and Management of the University of Sussex Business School, and is also a fellow of the Higher Education Academy. She has an Oxford Fintech and Blockchain qualifications from the University of Oxford and a PhD in Financial Economics from the University of Sussex. She is involved in research and has taught at Lancaster University, Catholic Leuven University, and Loughborough University. Her excellent teaching skills have been valued by several teaching awards, the BME's Oscar Award for the Best Seminar Tutor, Excellence in Teaching Award, and Student-Led Teaching Award. Her remarkable passion for teaching and discovering new areas of development guides her interest towards fintech, banking digitalization, financial literacy, financial inclusions, and political uncertainty. So I welcome all of you. Very nice of you to have agreed and join us this evening. So without further ado, I invite Wahel to address all of us as our first speaker. Thanks.
Let me get my window up. I think it should be coming through now. Okay, yeah?
Yes, good.
Yeah, okay.
All clear.
So just a bit of intro about myself, right? So I've been involved in various types of projects. We've got image recognition, we've got chatbots. Sometimes it can be even automating simple work processes, transferring data from one database, merging it with another to come up with some sort of analysis. One of my projects did impact everyone in attendance today. Some of them, including your parents. My team was tasked to help to run a data-driven campaign for Pakatan Harapan when we were back in Invoke. So as a result, what our work resulted in was a change of federal government, and 5 state governments actually fell. So if students are wondering what kind of impact you can have with the skills that you learn, what you do potentially in your work, it can alter the course of countries, even whole governments. So you have that kind of ability to be able to impact your future and the futures of others. So my only hope to you is not to misuse that power and try to help humanity advance, continue to progress, actually. So a bit more about what other people face in the industry, right? So what you learn in school, you got SQL, you got Google Analytics, your Tableau, Power BI, and so on. Those are your hard skills that you need for your job. But those are not the only things that you will need to succeed in your job. You will also need to learn how to talk to people, how to work with people. You will also need to learn how to improve yourself. So the hard skills that you have, that are the upper right circle, that's your data analysis skills, that's your data visualization, SQL, Google Analytics, and so on, right? Now, once you graduate, how fast you can advance in your career, or what type of work that you will get to do will depend on how fast you can learn. Your greatest commodity is basically how fast you can learn. That's it. The faster that you can learn new technologies, for example, right? In the start, we wanted to experiment with augmented reality technology. So if you open up newspapers, you can see ads for properties like houses or bungalows or whatever, right? The problem is that the image of the house is 2D. And what if you want a 3D representation of that image? We actually experimented, hey, if you point your phone towards that image with a certain QR code and so on, you can actually see a 3D image of that on your phone. So we experimented with that. I had no experience with augmented reality coding for Kotlin. I picked up Kotlin in 3 days. I picked up enough of it to be able, so that I can come up with the app and deploy it on my phone. So if you have that kind of learning speed, you will be able to go very far in the data world. And another tip I have for you is actually to go for industry certification. So I talk quite frequently to a lot of recruiters from Hayes, Robert Walters, and so on. And a lot of them actually tell me that there's a high demand for skills in cloud computing, your GCP, your AWS, your Microsoft Azure. If you have certain certifications, for example, data engineer, data scientist, business analyst, and so on, it's those kind of skills which sets you ahead of everyone else. One review that I've heard for Google Cloud Platform certifications, it's incredibly difficult. The passing mark is about 80%. It's either pass or fail. You have no ABCD anymore. So once you get that cert for Google, you have to renew it every 2 to 3 years so that you stay up to date with the current technologies that GCP has to offer. So after you graduate from your undergraduate or graduate program, the learning doesn't stop there. The exams don't stop there. So you have to keep learning for the rest of your life. Keep upgrading, keep upskilling, and so on. You do that, and you will be able to excel in your career. Now, the other 2 parts that schools don't often teach you is how do you manage stakeholders. Like, for example, people like me will get requests from business users. How do you automate this particular workflow? How do you create this particular report? You actually have to talk to not only the business user, you have to talk to our internal architecture team. Hey, these people want this. Are this available in our systems? So it's not just the coding part that you have to deal with in your work. Once you graduate, for more junior positions, you spend about 70 to 80% of your time coding. The remainder of your time is spent talking to other departments. As you grow, as you become more senior in your career, you become a senior associate and so on, you can spend like maybe half the time talking to other people. The other half is just coding. If you become a director, I think you spend almost none of your time coding. It's mostly managing stakeholders and so on. Make sure everyone gets the same message. Make sure you scope out the project properly and so on. The other part is how do you learn to communicate with others? Do you use an email or a meeting? Both have pros and cons. In emails, people tend to read shorter emails a lot better compared to long emails. In meetings, then if you want to present something in a meeting, you have to prepare the slides, you have to prepare what kind of message that you want to send, you need to prepare the objective of the meeting, what decisions that you want to achieve, and so on. So certain things you handle through email, certain things you need to call for a short meeting, and so on. So these are the skills that you need to learn once you join the working world. So next. Okay, so let me give you a rough process about business analytics in the real world. So this project is an example of what I faced in Star Media Group. And if you go to the star.com.my, there's a new section there called Star Plus. It was new 1.5 years ago. And Star Plus actually presents a lot of analysis-driven articles to readers. So instead of seeing like, oh, Zahid Hamidi becomes the new prime minister and so on, this one we actually take data sets from other sources. For example, it can be Election Commission, it can be Department of Statistics and so on, and we try to create a story, and we use that data to tell a story. So we no longer need to interview people as much because there are some interesting data even in government budget documents. So this particular project I was working on, there was only one question. Okay, we created this new section called Star Plus. How well is it performing? The question didn't entail how do I define well. So that was up to me to define. So as future graduates of the business analysts, it's your job to define what is considered performing well. Is it the number of pages users read? Is it the number of users that visit a particular section? Is it how deep, because if long articles on a mobile phone, you tend to scroll down, how deep the user goes into a particular article and so on. So it's your job to define that metric. Once you come up with a few questions which can help to structure your presentation, you find out, hey, which metrics can help to support those questions. And those metrics can come from software like Google Analytics or any other enterprise systems. So my advice to you is this: don't worry about the tools, whether it's GA, PowerPoint, Excel, and so on. Just come up with the questions that will help you structure the entire presentation first. Once you have those questions in agreement with your business users and your managers, the next step is to look for data. The looking for data part only takes up about 20% of your time. It's relatively simple. If you find out, if you are already familiar with Google Analytics, it's even faster. If you're familiar with SQL, Excel, it will even help you in your job. So when you look for data, there's one particular danger that most people face. For example, they see a column number of users, right? So number of users doesn't necessarily mean number of users. It can also mean the number of unique cookie IDs. It can also mean the number of visits. So when you see a column with a particular header, make sure you really understand what is it. Don't just take it at face value. So that's my advice to you. And when you look for data, you try and anticipate when you look for data and you want to present your findings to your stakeholders, make sure you try to anticipate what questions they will send to you, that they will send your way during the presentation. If you can anticipate these questions in advance, you can help to prepare answers ahead, because there are some questions that they answer. There are some questions that they ask which will require some in-depth research, and it really helps in terms of productivity of the meeting that you have the answers on hand. So once you look for data. The third part is actually to design slides. So here's a tip for y'all. Those with the better slides, they tend to come from like consulting companies and so on. If you see someone in working in a private sector and suddenly his slides seems to be like 1 or 2 levels above everyone else, yeah, that's because the guy probably has some consulting experience. So one particular tip from me, how to design great slides is I always Google McKinsey slide template in Google Image. So I see which design I like, then I just use the design that you're looking at right now. It actually came from one of McKinsey's slides. So avoid crowding each slide with too much information. We've all seen slides where you've got like 9 charts on one particular page. I'm not an advocate for that practice. And whatever information you want your users to see, make sure you highlight it somehow using colors, using borders, whatever. Don't just do a brain dump on them. That's the best way for you to lose their attention during the presentation. And you can't just present data for the sake of presenting data. Whatever story that you want to tell, make sure you have some sort of a storyboard. Sometimes 1 hour meeting, all you need is like 5 to 6 slides. 5 to 6 slides, you present in 15 minutes, the other 45 can be about discussion, can be about making decisions. So just because you got a 1 hour slide just because you got a 1 hour meeting doesn't mean you need 60 slides. One resource I recommend for those who want to do a bit of data storytelling is this book, Storytelling with Data Visualization Guide for Business Professionals, and Storytelling with Data Let's Practice. So one example, you see the chart on the left, not so easy to detect the patterns, right? In terms of like product A, product B, when they increase price, what happens to product C, D, and E? But if you look at the graph on the right, it becomes easier to see, becomes easier to analyze in terms of time. So one pattern that's immediately obvious, when these products are introduced into the market, in the second year, these prices tend to go up. Then after a certain number of years, the prices tend to go down. That pattern is more obvious in the right graph compared to the left. So how you want to design these kind of charts, I recommend that book. So I finished that book last year. It helps me a lot in my job. So any questions you have? I think we have time, right? I am ahead of time.
There's no questions. Any questions from the audience? If not, then I think maybe we'll go to Erhan's talk first, and then we'll come back to Q&A
sure.
after Gozia's talk.
All right, sure.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful share. Erhan, you're up next.
Okay. See my slide?
Yeah.
Awesome. So hi everyone. My name is Erhan. I run a data analytics firm called Quartal Science. We serve other businesses, so enterprise clients. A bit of myself, I think Waihao. I used to work also for Khazanah for 9 years before moving on to government for 3 years in EPU, Economic Planning Unit. I was educated at Cornell and Williams in economics and tech in computer engineering. So that's my background. I've always been an analyst. So even in Quartal Science, the primary stuff that I do is actually on the analytics side. And I hire CTO and data scientists to actually help me complete my assignment from the clients. So just to talk a bit more about the industry or what's going on. I think over the past few years, we saw a lot of automation. I mean, people are talking about in terms of changing how people do work, a bit more automation, a bit more data collected. And actually with the platforms that use Lazada, Grab and all that. So this intermediation between buyer and seller are actually being reduced. Although there's some issues on what's going on those platforms. And also on functional obsolescence. I think recently with tech, a lot of how we use buildings, how we use the industry, the trends in certain spaces out of the industry are being reduced or in terms of economic function because of tech and how we design our living after COVID. So that has affected how we do things in the past at least a year and a half. So out of all these disturbances in the market, we saw a lot of data coming out from how we transact, how we the advertisement and all that. So what we do at Quartal Science is actually a small portion of the huge growing pie in data analytics. So we do the data janitorial work, actually the data collection and analysis. It's some sort of piping work or cleaning up work before you can use the data. So that's pretty much how we started the business about 2 years ago. But recently we saw a lot of interest in doing analytics and algorithm. For example, people pass us some economic papers that they want to replicate, or other papers that you want to replicate with local data. So we get some bit of that too. So in our experience, actually, just like how was explaining on the process, right? Yes, of course, data can't solve anything. You have to to ask the right question first. But also, we found that domain knowledge cannot be replaced. So yes, while you have all these tools available to you to actually get your stuff done, you still need a lot of domain knowledge, and we prefer to actually work with someone who is an expert in certain areas to actually understand the industry before we can actually advise people. So the experience that we so far we started how we deal with clients is we do a small POC first to actually show the question that they have is it can be solved with data. So
Sorry, Erhan.
Yep,
Sorry to interrupt you. Could you reshare your screen again?
Okay.
It got cut off there.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
No problem. There you go. You see?
Yes, we are back.
Yes, of course. Okay. So the way that we do stuff in Quartal Science is actually go out there and pitch for jobs, and we start with a small POC and show them how the data works that we can do to help them with their business. The key things that usually clients respond to is actually how do they grow their business, whether it's new channel, whether it's new market, whether it's new way of doing things. So and then we actually build up the products towards bigger and bigger lah. So that's how we do stuff. And usually we start small. For example, think of a Bloomberg for property, right? That's one of the earliest project that we do. So we organize data, real estate data for clients. So first is actually collecting data from multiple sources of unstructured data, and then we organize it in such a way that it's all indexed to one another, so that you can search from one place to multiple form of data, whether it's actually GIS data, approval data, the transaction data, to be able to actually index all those, and then make it a nice stable form, whether it's on Google Sheet or on SQL, so that other people can use. So these are the type of things that we do for clients, and then of course we deploy some of it on whether it's on Python or Tableau or data wrapper to actually show some of this, and it helps other consultants to serve their clients better, and of course the analysis and all that lah. So okay, don't worry about the fancy stuff. Actually, a lot of this are available on the web. You can actually copy and paste, and the most important, that's why the most important things is actually the domain knowledge, knowing which algorithm to use in what case. So that's how we started, and now we are expanding into other areas. For example, in energy, in oil and gas, and some of our paying clients are actually in energy and oil and gas for now. So for us, there's a lot of companies like us, small companies, with human capital size between say 10 to 50 that does all this sort of data analytics. I think if you are familiar, VAS and Datel actually do consumer analytics. So we use VAS quite often. Actually help some of the clients. Urban Metry, also similar to I think other startups like the real estate data. Although they're serving markets like banks as opposed to developers. And Vector Labs, Polar Drone, Aerodyne, of course, names that you've heard in the market. I mean, raising funds, doing analytics on for drones, Polar Drone and Aerodyne. Vector Labs is something quite interesting because they do custom hardware shop. So what they do recently, I saw is that they are able to really install 600 cameras on Petronas lorry, and then be able to actually take the data from the CAN bus from the engine, and able to actually deploy that analytics on maintenance, on how you reduce costs, on oil pilferage and all that. So also big data mining. I think Bumi Data Mining (BDM) also does oil and gas, very specific on some of this. And I expect this space would grow bigger in the next few years. There's a lot of demand, especially after COVID. We saw digital transformation is the way to go. Even companies, I mean, not large listed companies, but middle-sized listed companies are actually talking to us on how to actually use data to help them have an edge over their clients. I think apart from, say, of course, Big Four like McKinsey, BCG, and others, EY and all that. So there are career options going forward on business analytics. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Erhan. That was really good. Definitely, both of you definitely have lots to share with us. Wahel and Erhan, I think we definitely need to bring you back for another maybe single session or double session. Okay, let's move on to Gozia first. Okay, she's going to share with us from the perspective of technology, financial technology, fintech. Gozia?
Yes, I'm trying. Can you see my slides?
Not yet. Yeah. Coming up.
Can you see it now?
Yeah,
thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me here. It's an amazing pleasure. I have to say a very big clap for the previous speakers. It was very interesting. So about me a little bit. So before I joined academia, I was working and I was very much involved in the industry. I was consultant for the PricewaterhouseCoopers, Societe Generale. I work as well for IBM, and then I decided to do my PhD. So I'm not a very typical academic, and I'm still not very typical academic because I'm in academia, but as well I'm helping different type of the startups, working with them, especially in the area of financial digital educations. So I was involved in the projects. I don't know if you ever heard about that, like Crazy Monkeys. So it is education app for kids, how to introduce them to user finance and understand. We work that in several different places. So I would say a little bit more than so that is kind of a little bit about me. So it is actually transferring to my teaching and the way how I am as well, and how I talk as well. So I may be less formal person than the normal lectures that you can came across when you come at Sussex. But there are a few of us like that who having both expertise, who were in the industry, who did the PhD, they decided to stay in academia from different several reasons. I did that for my family actually, to have time for my kids. And then actually they're still working very closely with the industry, or actually we having our own businesses that we are trying to actually develop and actually make it more public use, not so profit oriented. So one of the things which I wanted to point it out, and many of you have already heard, I don't know how many you are familiar with that, we can hear often the question like fintech, fintech, fintech. So there's a huge interest in finance, banking, and accounting about fintech, and you can start thinking of like this how that is actually related, how actually it is true that actually banking sector is changing because of the innovation and technology, and what actually it is. Yes. So first of all, it's actually I would like to bring a little bit of the history here. Is that since 2008, after the meltdown of the crisis, we can easily see that the banking industry is changing, and one of the changes happening, they were extremely over-regulated. I would not say that in the bad context, but the regulation were implemented very fast, very rapidly, in very high cost. And that actually didn't give them time to actually look what other players are doing. And I mean, now what we could easily see it is the whole new industry actually grow, which is called fintech. So you can ask me, okay, so what is the fintech? Okay, so where it is coming, where it is coming. So many people pointed out to you like PayPal and etc. They are one of the examples, but actually the industry started developing in the beginning of the 90s. So it is not something that has come now. We hearing more about that. It's a flashy word. Everyone is actually putting that because everyone is searching it. But actually this flashy word started much more earlier. And so what we think about fintech, so fintech is having two terms, finance and technology. In other, implementation of the technology in the finance in order to transfer the service to be more in the remote way. Yeah, so that's one of the way of looking at it. So if you want to purchase your house and it's going morely all this application through your iPad or through your any type of the application that you can get on your phone, that is what you feel about. That is you are closer to fintech. Another thing is, so what I did here is kind of pointing out you how wide is actually fintech. So fintech is not only finance, sometimes is going in very different ways. So first of all, it's a huge adaptation of this mobile social clouding computing that we are using in incredible ways. We have a new technology jumping into which are actually absorbed. So artificial intelligence, blockchain is going actually affecting the way how we are trading. So it's any type of the algorithms, trading algorithms that we have having is affecting the way how we are borrowing the money through the P2P lenders. It's affecting for robot advising, for the computer consumer advising. So it's rise of any type of the platforms we're dealing with, exchanging the data, doing a financial transaction and doing open banking. And as well is affecting something what we very often hear is you know, everyone hear about the bitcoins, but we know that bitcoins is not only the one currency that we are having, it's more than 300 currencies that we are trading now. Bitcoin is one of them. It's of course the leader who allowed us to create a blockchain technology, but it's many of them, and based on that we have a different type of a crypto asset, which many like option contract which are using the cryptocurrencies to trading. And of course the whole decentralization of the finance. So it's a kind of really weird. So if I will look at the fintech, I will look at whole ecosystem. And actually this is actually was created when I was involved in one of the project with the PricewaterhouseCoopers. They have the fintech lab that is operating, and it's mainly, as we can see, is a the volume of the fintech is starting from lending to up to the mortgage and real estate, through personal finance, through the payment of your bills, for insurance. But actually now, which is something which is very new, which is not added here, that was literally produced 2 years ago, we should add it something which is in regard to the supervision. We know that is a, we know that the central banks are using and actually implementing the technology to improve the way how they're supervising the financial market. We have this amazing Rio project that has been created to analyze the real-time transaction of the exchange rate, which give you a feedback for each of the users regarding to the risk that you are taking by participating in that market. So we want one of the things which you can ask me, okay, so where we are, what is happening, how we are adapting this fintech technology. So it's like if we look at the wide world is around 30%. Actually, it's actually now more. This is mainly, it's almost 45. And we can look at the leaders. So one of the leader is, of course, one, I wouldn't say of course, is UK. The reason of that is of the changes of the regulation that has been implemented literally 5 or 6 years ago, and they are carrying on allowing actually the fintech to grow and collaborate with the existing banks, and not only, but but we are not the main one. Asia is actually the one that is a booming, and it's worth to point it out that you're one of the leaders, and especially like the places like Hong Kong, Singapore, India is the places with this industry is literally, spreading. There can be as well discussion like why and etc. But it's worth to point it out that there's a lot of huge shift that happen in the financial industry, which of course UK is part of that and a significant player, but as well the other markets are significant players too, and very often we learn from each other about how the technology is developing. So I wanted to kind of bring a little bit things which I'm working, which is the Crazy Monkey app that we create with collaboration of the different banks in South Africa. We launched that project, actually not in UK, we launched that project in South Africa. And what was the reason why we launched that project in South Africa? It was a regulation. We couldn't literally go in UK through the number of the regulation. We have to launch the app for the teaching the kids. It was like 3 years waiting when we could actually do that in South Africa in less than 6 months. And that is the reason we go for it. So actually that can bring a little bit of discussion regarding to, how regulation can affect businesses and where they grow and why they grow. You can easily spot it on that slide. There are certain countries which we consider as a leader, like US, Germany, France, which you were expecting them to be on the top of it, and they actually not. And one of that is this regulation. If we look at the regulation of the European Union Commission, they actually implemented the new regulation about the usage of the artificial intelligence for the business last year. That is too late. That is too late. Uh, the whole project about implementing of the blockchain by European Commission started literally 2 years ago. So that can be giving some kind of looking how the things. Of course, the key part of the how the technology is developing, and I think that is something which was our previous presenter was mentioned. We have to constantly learning, and that is what I know from my perspective, my work experience I had in IBM. When I joined IBM, I was less than 20. I finished my master's degree when I was 19, and I literally jumped to that time to IBM on the graduate scheme. And that time, we only talk about distributed databases. There's not so much anything, there's like mention about the P2P networks. That was the beginning. And then there was a huge project coming regarding to blockchain because IBM decided that will be a future. So they create a new project about it. So what I want to point out, this technology is changing. Of course, there are key of them, but I can imagine in another 3 or 5 years, we will see more and more of them. And one of the things which I think me personally as a lecturer, and as a person who is involved in my own business, we have to teach you guys how to be aware of this technology. That is another slide which I want to point out. It's mainly based on the UK, pointing out how the customer channels has changed. Okay, if you look at the banking, especially in UK, around I don't know, decade ago, the only thing that it will be branches, it will be ATMs, cash points, and may call center, and that was all. That was anything what we had. What we can see now in UK, we are closing the branches and we're moving to different type of the services that providing, expanding on the online banking that started in 90s is something that, is going now through this different type of the applications for the social media that they wanted to implement it. Another thing is mobile. Yeah, we're talking about with the mobile came in about 2000 mainly as a technology, but now we can see is that is how much this technology actually allowing you to actually through the QR code and anything actually do the transaction through your phone or having virtual cards that you have on your phone. A new thing is actually going through the boots. It's like no one ever thought that we will have anything which is called a chatbot, that anyone, like I remember when IBM was proposing that project some time ago, they were saying, no one will chat about the finances. That will not happen. It happened because the generation, our new generation which coming is very different than me. I can see that through my cousins, they don't talk, they chat. So why they will not chat about their finances? Of course they will, because that is the way how they communicate. Yeah. So as I wanted pointed, just all the channels are changing, and never, not even the existing channels of the branches that we have. Before, when you go to the branch, I remember time there would be cashier around 5-6 people. Now you go to the branch, for instance, any type of the bank, HSBC or Barclay in UK, maybe 2 people, and the rest of the thing you have different type of the kiosk banking. You have a machine that you can take to all, so you can even through the machine apply for your mortgage. This is the change that we can see it, and this change is rapidly implemented. So you can ask me, okay, where this fintech industry is standing? Fintech industry is standing because the banks didn't have time to implement many of this technology. Now they are purchasing this technology and actually collaborating with the fintech companies to allow them to have it. So another thing which may be worth to look at, okay, so are we worried how the post-COVID will implement on fintech? What we could notice, and I can look at the data and everyone can look at it, actually the fintech is only industry which actually was not affected, actually is booming because of COVID. Of course, there's some areas regarding to transfer-wise had to change to be moved to be a mobile bank instead of being only payment exchange cross-country company. But these changes were happening, and they are because the fintech is very, very mobile as an industry, very, elastic. It allowed them to do it. So that is one thing that we can say. Another thing is you can ask yourself, should I study that or not? And I would my personally answer yes, you should actually learn about technology. You have to, because the world is changing. Even this conference we're having today, which is amazing. I'm sitting in UK, you're sitting guys in the other side of the world. We are meeting together, and this type of events will happen, and technology will be driven them even more and more. We are very multi-connected world, and definitely studying this type of things regarding how the technology is affecting finance, how the digital companies, I didn't actually talk about, we know that giants such as like, Amazon, Google, they actually moving now to provide more and more financial product. This is not accident that, uh, Facebook decided to have their own currency. This is how the world is changing and moving. So one of the thing is, and I'm very happy that we have this collaboration here. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we decided to start a new degree, which was, I'm talking a little bit about that because that is a kind of my project, which was driven by my working experience. And I think that is a little bit talking about how Sussex is. Um, we're trying to create courses which are relevant for the industry. And this degree which I was involved, which is the fintech degree, what we call it, as you can see, it has a very wide of different courses that we provide, which is relevant what I actually covered today. And I think it's extremely important. But one of the things which we discover, and I discovered on my working experience, was that the coding will be another skill that we need. So we talk, we write, and another skill that our kids needs to know, our student needs to know, is code. Without coding, it will be very difficult to actually exist in the future. It will be possible, I'm not saying that, but if you want to get a really well-paid job, that is something that you will be asked to do. So that is amazing. Like all my employees from my company, they know how to code. They have to understand. Even the project manager has to know how the code is done, because otherwise he cannot communicate with his software engineer guys. I code because I have to understand what they are talking to me. It's a simple thing. I am completely agree with the previous speaker that, for instance, if you are going on the higher and higher position, you less code, but you have to understand what the people below you actually are doing. If you don't, you are lost. Your business is lost. Okay, so so that would be some kind of a message I would like to transfer here. One of the thing which I wanted to show you as well is It's how our world look like, and a global village. And one of the things which UK did is something which is called Calif reform, which was implemented 1 year ago. And it's one of the reform is actually trying that the whole economy needs to be pushed and transferred based on the regulation and the way how we educate people to more, digital way of delivering services. And that is happening, and I think it's happening globally. So if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer. If you feel that you are, I don't know, you are too shy or something and you don't want to ask the questions now, this is my email. You can find me as well on the LinkedIn. So please ask.
Thank you so much. It was a very good introduction and overview for fintech. Okay, so for our participants, if you have any questions, do post it in the chat. Wai Hao has answered some of the questions addressed to him. Okay, so I do have some questions. I get a lot of students who tell me that they can't cope with coding. Okay, so Wai Hao, Erhan, and even Gozia has mentioned that coding is so important. So do you think that this is really something that they have to work on so that they have an advantage in their pocket when they go out into the working world? Coding in terms for analytics and even fintech? Anyone wants to?
Let me go ahead and answer that and try to answer that question. When I first started, I had a degree in electrical engineering. So by that definition, I knew how to code 30 years ago. But the language that I coded back then were no longer. I couldn't recognize any of it today. If you're talking about JavaScript and all that, it has grown beyond. But it helps in terms of the first 2 or 3 years in the early of your career. That's one. Number two is actually the knowing that the what you code is more important, especially on the pseudocode, on how you think about understanding the problems is useful, because I think in the next few years, the no code AI stuff will be coming on board. So while there's no need to code as much, I think it's important to know which algorithms use which paper to replicate that sort of things. To me, thank you.
Okay, and also to understand, especially the logic behind the coding itself, right? Very important. All right, that's great. You said you came from engineering background, so you were coding in Fortran. I think back then
back then was C, C++, Java.
Okay. All right. Got some questions here. Helen is asking Gozia, let me read it. Do we get an opportunity in the field of fintech? Oh, okay. So she's asking that what happens if she wants to get into the fintech field, but she does not have the domain knowledge of finance? How does that affect going into the field?
Personally, I know, like, for instance, one of the a crazy monkey that we have is a fintech company, because we are working with one of the things we're providing the services of the bank through our app for setting up the accounts for kids. And many of my colleagues who I'm working with, who are working on the blockchain technology, because we have a network of the different type of the shops that kids can spend money. Okay, I'm not going to the details, but going to is my blockchainers who are developing blockchain, they are not have a knowledge on finance. But however, what we did for them when they joined the company, I did like a short, I prepared a whole set of the videos to explain them each of the products, that they understand the finance behind that, because it was extremely difficult to talk with them, like, mortgage and stuff, how it works and where it will be placed in the system that we have, and what will be the role for them to actually have impact on that product. So I think in the industry has a lot of people who are very, typical computer science people who joining the industry. The industry has been very often, if you look at the CEOs, that people have this type of the skills. You have like even for us, for Crazy Monkey, I am mixed person. I have different type of the skills. One of the degrees I did is mathematics from Warsaw University, with huge amount of coding stuff. But actually, the person who is working with me is typical computer science person. He doesn't have a background. Now he's doing his MBA, but many of us have this only pure type skills. So if you wanted to know what I would strongly, one of the things you can do it, which I think was pointed by Co, was that you can do some kind of a certification for you. You can educate yourself. There's so many courses that you can do about finance. I think it's thousands and millions that you can do it if you wanted to polish your skills. And another thing is it's actually to see what the company is requiring, what type of the program they have, like training. So I remember when I joined to IBM, my coding skill were quite okay, but they were not so compared with other people who are like having typical degree in computer science. I was a person who finished mathematics and a second degree in economics or finance. I was not the stronger one there. And IBM gave me opportunity for 6-month course in coding. So it's depend as well, which company you're going with, what type of expectation they had. There will be a lot of how to say it, kind of individual way that you fit, where you're fitting as well. So that would be my reply here.
Okay, so you may need to learn on the go for as the job requires.
It's depend where your strong skills are, so it's the thing is, if you know that you're going for the fintech company and you will be there responsible for let's say front end development of the website, give example of back end of the development of website, whatever. So of course in this case you are very narrow. It will be helpful to know but for instance, if you will be a project manager, or for instance you wanted to change to be a project manager, then your financial skills and your project management skill will be extremely important. So what I would say is following. For the junior position, yeah, but if you want to grow in the company, you will have to polish. You very often you have to do your other degree. I'll give an example of my colleague now, good friend of mine as well, who we're working together. He's polishing his skills. He's doing his MBA because he needs that. So what I'm saying is yes, I would say definitely. And as well, another skill which I think is very important to point it out, and I think many of us has a problem. If you are very much educated only in finance, you're very well to talk about finance. You can communicate about that. If you're educated in the computer science, you're very good at communicating that. The people who are able to be transferring the way how you code to finance or vice versa is a unique skill, and it's really missing, to actually understand, how these things are related to each other. That is mean. I think, yeah.
Okay, thanks. All right, we've got another question from Dr. Liu. So she's saying that there are many people talking about data analytics, data science, business analytics. Maybe we'll address this to Waihao. Do you think you could enlighten us on the differences between these type of courses? How are they relevant in terms of a career in the business world?
I actually answered in the chat already.
Oh, you did? I
Yeah,
see. Didn't scroll down. Okay. So
I think all
there
of
are.
us are trying to reply. I was
Yeah.
trying to reply to chat as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing two things at one go. That's why.
So I find that all of these different kinds of analytics, you got your data science subset data analytics, your business analytics. It's a very fine line, right? The differences from one to the other. Is that what you find? You mentioned that there were overlaps, so
Yeah, the core skills
yeah.
are the same lah. Every decent data professional will need some SQL, some R, some Python. There are softwares which are special to each company's use case. If you work in banking sector in Malaysia, you probably still need some SAS. If you work in a company called FusionX, you need to learn their own proprietary software called Giant. So core skills are the same, but be prepared to learn for each company lah.
All right. Okay. Let me scroll down. Is there any questions that you got to it before me. Ah,
I
you
got to
did.
most of them
Wow.
except the last
You
one.
multitask really fast, man. Okay, there's one by Tan Shu-er. What is the content of job marketing analyst, HR analyst, business analyst? Is it need okay, so yeah, it goes back. So a lot of students are still asking, does it need less coding skills, or is it the same type of level of coding skills for all these different types of jobs in the different fields for analysts, marketing, HR, business?
I think what I can point it out is definitely not. And another thing, it will go specialization to each of the companies. Yes. So if you are working in typical data mining companies, they might be going a little bit different with this type of the skills. So um, it would depend. I know that it's not very maybe precise answer, but it's going again depends on the individual base of the companies, how deep they demand. For instance, like I remember times. Okay, so I can give the example basing on one of the consultancy I was involved in. Sky. Sky is I don't know if you know Sky. Sky, it is mainly a kind of like a BBC. So I would say like they provide a lot of different channels of the TVs and stuff.
Yes.
So they were interesting about that was a big data department looking about how to provide the proper advertisement, which how to connect what you watch with what type of the advertisement you should point it out. So it's a huge data. It's fun. I love data. But going back, so if you think about, I joined there as one of the person who is working with the marketing analysts and a team, and I was shocked because it was a lot of we have to, because of this size of the data, how you cluster them. It was a lot of required of the coding skills in order to deal with that data, how to present to the CEOs, how to do it. You have to present this millions of the data that you have, per minute observation what you happen, how to present that in the more possible understandable way. So what I was saying point is depend on the demand and where you are. And I can see it's, I remember marketing analysis 20 years ago when there was not so much data involved. Excel sheet was, top what you needed. When I joined the Sky, I learned that, a Python and R was essential to deal with the data, it's essential to actually be able to provide. But another thing is depend on the size of the company, because if you have a very big company, very often you have a data analyst next to you, how I was working in the marketing department. So the people from marketing, they were helping me with marketing. So that is what I'm saying. If maybe you will be a small size company, then you will have to do everything by your own, and then your data, your ways of analyzing the data will be essential for you. Yeah. So I don't know. I give that to maybe to my practitioners who are in the panel, what they think.
Yeah. To me, don't worry so much about coding. In the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of jobs that doesn't require coding. I think even in companies like especially in this region, listed companies that has revenue between $3 to $5 billion, billion ringgit, which is about $1 billion. They still use Excel. They still use some of their I think accounting software has been used for 20 years. So these are what we saw with some of our potential clients. And also at this larger scale like Petronas and TMB, of course, they've done their data engineering. Everything's on their data warehouses and all that. So that is different, but they also have a different units or different department that handles the analytics, that handles the upstream analytics, that handles it does the signaling and all that. So those are really specialized things. So depends on, again, depends on which sector, which areas are you interested in. For example, in real estate, there's no data whatsoever. They just buy the land based on the money that they have, or based on the financing that they have from the bank, and then think about what they do with the land later. So yeah, so various things that exist depending on where you are.
So it's still very, again, specific to the field, specific to the company and their job requirements lah. So it's very hard to pinpoint right now and tell our students this is what you need A to Z definitely to get that job and things like that.
But I think big highlight is actually on the trends. I saw some of my talents actually now working with startups or other companies outside of Malaysia, because they've built their domain knowledge in certain areas. So the adjacency between tech and business business content is actually useful for you to go out and serve startups or funded startups around the globe. So I mean that has actually taken off quite a bit over the past 18 months.
Okay, thank you. So actually, three of you have shared, and the main takeaways I've got was actually two things. One was coding, and the other was communication. Okay, so before I go to my question on communication and presentation, when you're talking about coding, programming languages, is there any specific language that a student should learn before they go out into the working world, or any type of language will give them the basics?
I think I would start with a little bit of this topic. So I would start a little bit basing on my history, which I started. So, uh, one of the things which I learned over the years is, so I would give the example of my PhD and when I started. So when I did my PhD, everyone was taking, okay, yeah, you have to learn R if you are a data analyst. Oh yeah, everyone used R. And it was like, you everything heard about that, and it helped me actually get a few jobs. I would say consultancy job, as I mentioned about Sky. But then something shift, and now everyone say Python. So what I can say is, what I was strongly basing on I don't know how the other people in the panel thing is, it's good to learn one language well, because these languages are similar. I started my career. I wouldn't say career, but I started learning my first coding skill, which was C++. It was the language that they introduced in my high school. So there was a nice professor who used to come to my high school, and he was teaching us the C++. And that was my start, Sorry, start was with Pascal, and then we moved to C++. And because I got a kind of good grab in C++, it was really helping me to move from one language to another language. It's literally speeding me up, It's like, because I know quite well R, I was able to grab Python. And this is how I don't know, that is my experience. So if you learn one good language, a basic language, is then it's easy to actually maneuver from one to another. They have, like, no one change, your loops. No, if always work the same, for works the same, it can be different way how you coding that in that language, but loops work same, like, for instance, like when I started doing my PhD, my supervisor asked me to use Stata. I didn't have anything. I didn't know Stata at all. No one, I never use it, but because it was similar, I was able to do it. So that will be my experience. And another thing is, what maybe a little bit with coding, it's a little bit different than anything else I think you are learning, because like if you look about finance, you have to, you open the book or you open several different books, you learn. But with coding, you're learning by doing. So the more you do, the better you are at it. And the same, that's how it is transferring. So you have to have that in your mind, that you can, learn, have several different courses, but as long somebody will not dip you in the big project and you get lost several times and you made thousands of mistakes, you will not learn. So that would be my experience talking, but I don't know how it's the other guest speakers.
Farhan, you wanted to share something on this?
Yeah. Partly because the company that I mean the stuff that we've been doing is actually mostly data agnostic. So sorry, not data agnostic, tech stack agnostic. So through us Python or R, we can actually organize ourselves and actually learn. So yes, some of these skills are transferable. Focus on one, Python maybe Python, because it's the in thing now.
Yes.
Yeah, after 20 years, or doing this, I think I can't say for sure that, oh, this JavaScript, oh no, it's Python. No, I can't say that anymore.
You never know. Next year it may change to another language
Yes.
that everybody will be mentioning. Yeah, it
Google would
changes.
come back with some new language and analyzing your data, and we're like, whoops, I think that was like, I think from Azure was one of the things. It's like, that is what I wanted to point it, but pointed out is, I think it is transferable. So and I think one of the handouts from this session you should learn, I think, for everyone, and it's not only going to you guys, but it's going as well to me. We are constant learners. Constant learners, you constant learners.
And practice makes perfect, right? Lots and lots and lots of practice. Yes. Um, okay, and the other takeaway was on communication and presentation, especially, meetings with your colleagues, your bosses, higher ups, and so forth. Actually, today was the first webinar where I seen industrial experts actually talk about communication. Previous webinars that I attended actually was just all about what they do, maybe the data itself, the project itself, but no one ever mentions how important communication is. So is this something that you can learn from a book, or do you think that it is best, that go out trial and error, and what do you think? How would you recommend to students to help improve their communication and presentation skills?
I think you start small. The first thing you start is actually class presentation. Do that often. That helps you with your confidence. Actually, it's not confidence. It's actually training on what to say at what moment and how you say it, and repeat. Even my wife now, she's working for ExxonMobil. She's speaking with the VP, global VPs and all that. She spent about 2-3 hours rehearsing what she's going to say within that I think 15 minutes, pitching to board members and all that at a global level. So don't worry about communication. It's actually still active practice. Even for me, I started off as analyst, as a person who codes, but also I take advantage of invitations like this to actually have the ability to speak to a group of people who's not familiar with me, or I'm not familiar with them. So always speaking to new people. I still have fear of talking in front of people. So it helps to practice, because part of what I do is actually consulting and also pitching and raising fund and all that. So yeah, you'll be seeing this a lot.
Do you find it that it is easier to talk online, since now like you're working from home, because majority don't on the camera, so it's like you're facing four of us only. It's like a more personal setting, right? Is that easier for you? Do you find that, rather than a whole classroom lecture of 300 students staring at you down at the podium?
I think both are similar, because I usually take off my glass when I'm speaking to a large group on the way, because I don't see the faces,
Okay.
During the Q&A, then I put on my glasses to actually see what people are asking. So that helps me a bit. But still, yeah, it's a lot of practice. Probably people or lecturers and PhD, they do this a lot. So they practice a lot. Sometimes they don't realize this, how easy for them to actually speak in front of public. For us, like sometimes it takes I have to prepare for this.
But again, I think it boils down to practice. Again, everything we do need to practice, whatever skills we learn, knowledge we learn. Thank you very much for today's. Sorry, goes yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add it because about the communication is because we move very much to virtual word. The written words are very important, like oral communication is very important. To be able to precisely communicate by words is essential now, because it's like because sometimes we used to have this face-to-face meetings when you could kind of sort it out these details. I don't know. It's my personal experience that we always have problems. So sometimes what we do when we get too many problems, in my environment, we actually make sure that we met up one times and actually, bring everything and then everything sorted out, because there's a problem. The communication has to one level. One is communicating the way how we are doing when you're speaking to someone, but there's another communication when writing, and this is a very essential part, and it's something which required a lot of practice, and it's worth to practice on that, because sometimes we like to say, I remember when I was, because I was good with mathematics, so for me, like, moving to, mathematics coding was like, yeah, that is good, that is a well to go, with the data, awesome, I know how to do it, it's easy, it's simple. But then whatever you calculated, whatever you have to explain that, like, many people doesn't know what does mean variance or median or whatever, and you have to transfer that into simple English, not only when you talk but as well when you write that, that every person can understand your report. And you have to write quite a lot of number of the reports. At least I remember that I used to do it, so I still have to. So I think it is both way of the things. One is communication. So if you think about you complaining, oh my goodness, I have so many essays to write, they have sometimes a point. You will be writing your reports for your company, and the report will not have 300 or 500 or 1000 words. It will have literally something around 50, 60 pages that you will be responsible for. So that is another point I think it's worth to point it out, that it has a point of writing.
That's a good one. So beware, students who are with us today. Don't complain about your written assignments anymore. There is actually a purpose to it. Ah, okay, thanks. It was a really good share today. Waihao, Erhan, Gozia, thank you again. Any last words before we end?
Ladies
Anything?
first.
Ladies first, Gozia. Any last words before we end?
So first of all, thank you for your time. So that will be the thing, and the last word, I hope to see you soon, like that we can catch up soon and have a more maybe deeper discussion. That would be really nice. And make sure to work on your communication skills in all the dimension that you can imagine.
Thank you. Waihao, Erhan, who would like to go
Uh,
first?
okay, so I'll go next. Yeah, so this advice goes out to all the students listening in. When you move from year one to year two, to year three, your path is basically set by the university. You have a list of subjects to study in year one, year two, year three, year four. When you graduate into the working world, you have a lot of freedom, but whatever decisions you make, you will bear the consequences, good or bad. Part of this decision is how do you start your career? Which language do you want to learn? What software you want to learn? So do some research, connect with the experts, see if they can give you advice, and hopefully everything works out. And if you
Okay.
want to listen more, ask your lecturers to invite me back again. I'd be happy to share some more inputs.
Real subtle way to get yourself invited back. Wow. Excellent. So he has been practicing his communication skills very well.
I was an ex-lecturer, I have to.
Erhan,
Oh, thanks. I think thanks for inviting. I think it's an awesome opportunity to actually speak to all of you. Feel free to connect. You can look me up on LinkedIn and everything. One word on I think on communication skill on writing especially. Yes, you're right. We get to write the long papers, especially if you're consultants. Not just long papers. Okay, could you transfer this into PowerPoint? That's usually what you get from clients. So yeah, it's writing and then PowerPointing.
from a 60-page report to what, 10 slides in PowerPoint? Oof,
Yes.
that is
Or
lots
no,
of
it's
hard work.
another thing. You have to recording now as well, having a short video. I had that. I have to prepare a short video of my report, which is like 8,000 like 8,000 words with
Really?
3 minutes. Yeah, with 3 minutes video. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that
Wow.
is a challenge. 8,000 words in 3 minutes.
Communication now, video communication now, it's important. I
It's,
mean,
it's okay. I was asked because somebody told me that some people cannot participate the call. So they say, "Oh, Gosha, can you make like a 3 minutes videos? You're good at it." I was like, "Yeah."
Is this a TikTok thing? Last time, the startup competition and all that, we have to submit about two minutes video to actually get selected. I mean, the price
We
is
had the
just too
same.
much.
We had the same. We have for one of the hackathon, we have to participate and we have to submit 3 minutes video. Yeah,
Yeah.
animated video. Yeah, it was headache.
Was this brought on because of the COVID pandemic scenario? That's why we're all going online. So video communication. What?
Uh, I think it is speeding the time of the judges.
Okay.
For instance, like when you have like, I think the one record I have to do a video is because one of the member of the board couldn't participate, and I think he's limited in the time. So then he get a video, and then he reads the report when he's traveling from one, by plane. So that was speeding up, I think, his time. And with the hackathon, what we had was literally, I think there was a submission. I think there was 5,000 different startups applying for funding.
Yep.
If they have to meet with 5,000 startups and spend 3 minutes, then multiply this time. So I think they're speeding up the time because they get videos and then they can split by the team to look at that. At least I went out one of the things which I participate. That is what we did. We split that, and it was faster for us to decide. And then with the one who we were thinking that has potential, we actually have a call.
Okay.
I think that was the reason, but I wanted to point it out. That is the new things coming.
Okay, so maybe we could insert this into future courses. Video recording. All right, thanks. We have no more questions. Thank you very much again. We hope to see you soon. We hope to invite you back for longer, more in-depth discussions.
If I would like to ask, I would love to invite you for Sussex as well. We have something which is called Coffee Connect. So if you don't mind, I will send today evening the invite through the LinkedIn in. So if you maybe have a few minutes spare, we would love to see you as well at Sussex. It would be lovely to have your opinion.
Okay, thanks. Just drop us the links, sure.
Yep.
If you're free, we will drop by. Okay, thanks. So good evening from Malaysia. I think Gozia, good morning. You just
Bye-bye.
started your day.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you.